I have as we are full steam ahead into Champion Select for Game 2 here, opening week of the Super Week here in Summer Split.
Oh, yeah. And a Lee Sin ban. It's targeted at Xmithie, but it's still a little bit surprising. Lee Sin saw a resurgence at the All-Star game with the insect mechanics, ward kicking people backwards over and over again. Xmithie, he's no insect, but it's still enough to draw the ban.
It brings in so much utility in the late game, which sounds weird. It's like shields everywhere, jumping here and there, and it's confusion. You never thought confusion would be such a huge, powerful thing to have in a fight.
It's what Lee Sin brings. Kha'Zix ban, so he won't get to see any super farm Kha'Zixes as well. Yeah. Blitzcrank ban against Edward. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually banned Thresh as well. You already know Edward is against the wall here, and you're going to try to throw him off as much as possible. I'm actually very surprised that Curse is the ones who banned Thresh. It tells me they have a much different first pick in mind.
Vulcun, they may have been thrown off by that as well.
Yeah. They're like, why did they ban Thresh, guys? What do they have in mind?
We don't have notes for this one.
And so, I'm kind of curious, too. What do they have in mind?
So they go ahead and they get a pretty safe pick there, or ban, I should say there.
Jarvan, maybe? Jace, of course. Of course, all the Jace bans that we've been seeing. He was so dominant at the All-Star game. Voyboy's mechanics just stick with Jace so well. Or even Nyjacky, we were wondering what he's going to play. Jace has a lot of versatility here.
We'll have to see. We do have some commons picked up by the Vulcun squad here. That Rise going on to mandatory cloud, most likely. Xmithie onto Sycho Sid.
I actually think that's going to be a top lane Rise.
Oh, after Shy Rise.
I'm thinking it's going to be a top lane Rise. Since you can build a fair bit of armor on Rise against a Jason lane, I don't know how dangerous it is. I need to have more top lane experience and get more insights on these guys, but that's my early prediction for this.
Nyjacky hovering over his all-time favorite League of Legends champion, and Tristana, I think, is in that squad because they played that in the end of towards the end of the season in their fun game. We'll have to see what they got here. Saintvicious looking to lock in as well. May not choose his jungler, or he may. Not going to be a rough pick for them right here. They're not giving away too much.
No, the one thing they do know is that Vulcun is giving away their solo lanes right now. And with a Trundle pick for Saintvicious or Voyboy, we're actually not sure. In the pregame, we said it would be a top lane Trundle, but maybe it's something for Saintvicious in the jungle. I haven't seen him practicing it too much.
We've had a lot of not Saint lately, Nautilus. But as of late, we are on that 3-7, so it'll still work for him. Still has that W damage strong. Mandatory Cloud picking up Sona, the other support that Edward plays. Not as much likes to, but plays a beautiful Sona as well as Caitlyn, so that lane getting a good amount of aggression. And
that is by far BloodWater's favorite support. I'm actually a little bit surprised that it didn't get denied by anyone on Curse earlier on, because when you give Vulcun Sona, since BloodWater is generally the one who calls the shots, their initiations are crisp, and it's much more than other supports can offer that team. So that is a very solid pickup for Vulcun as a team.
We'll see what Nyjacky decides to choose. As they lock this in, looks like we've got pretty strong area of effect damage composition coming in here from Vulcun. Once they get it all finished out, it looks like a lot of poke that we'll have coming from these guys on Curse.
I'm wondering if they're going to try to run a poke comp here. The hard initiation right now for Vulcun is pretty much just the Rise Rune Prison, Crescendo, and Cannonball, but that's not to say those things can't be displaced.
Cannon is used to kind of negate poke comps, right? You flash
sometimes,
if you can get it enough to follow up, but there really isn't a follow-up for these guys yet.
And with the Zyra pick right now, this tells me Curse is going poke, which is really surprising. I've not seen Curse play poke. This means it would be a jungle Saintvicious, mid lane Lux, and then support Zyra for Edward, which is not something we've seen a lot of lately.
And they really have a great composition for that poke. That disengage from the Trundle wall as well. It's going to shut down that cannon. You're really going to have only him or Xmithie making it into the fight when you start. So it's a great composition there. But on the other side as well, they can play safe. They have the disengage. I think we're going to see, just like game one, it's going to be really safe up until a certain point. Now it's swing it.
All going to be about whether Vulcun has enough engage to get at Curse, and if they do it decisively enough to not get poked down beforehand. It does look like I was wrong in the prediction. Kennen top lane to go against Jace, Rise mid lane to go against Nyjacky. I feel like they could have swapped those however they wanted. And obviously, if the early game goes incredibly one way, it's going to be like that. It's going to be probably that team. But poke versus hard engage, really exciting games to watch and very tense.
This is going to be great, too, because we haven't seen Saintvicious on Trundle, and I don't know how long the last time he played, maybe when you did back in like IPL 3 or something.
Yeah, he used to play like Vamscepter start jungle Trundle in Season 1, and he'd go double golems. But it's been so long. Trundle's received that beautiful visual makeover, but he decided just to go for the Junkyard Trundle as well when we decided to get in this game.
Nice.
Man, there's so much hype going into this game. Edward playing Zyra as well is just not the Curse bot lane we'd expect to see right off the bat. It's like Zyra Ezreal. That's the passive disengage bottom lane, not the jump-in-your-face thresh hook.
You never know. It's Edward. They could turn this. We're going to be like, okay, never mind. It's a kill bot.
All right, they're going to go kill against Caitlyn Sona, which is hard, by the way.
It will be. They don't have sustain. That's going to stick. We'll have to see what they're really running in runes once we get into the game. But we're into game 2 here. Rivington III and chat to bring you Vulcun versus Curse as we get it matched up. And remember, Cop and Edward, and how to bring up that duo lane for Curse.
And there was a lot of early game posturing in the Coast versus TSM game. I wonder if Curse and Vulcun are going to do similar things. Based on the pings that Curse has thrown out already, they're going to try to get a couple wards into Vulcan's jungle, while a couple of them are playing human wards as well, including Saintvicious and Nyjacky.
Yes. Double lift taking notes on where Saintvicious is guarding the bush.
That is definitely something that happened at the All-Star game when Dyrus was caught by the thresh hook over the wall. What people didn't realize is because Doublelift wasn't scouting Tribrush for him, but none of that is important for this game as Vulcan's trying to do that delayed in fade.
Let's see what they do. They are just hanging on to the red brush right now. Saintvicious is going to make his way all the way out, so they know they're invaded here. Vulcun has strength in the jungle. Looks like they'll be able to do what they want with this, but they may not stay to take anything.
3 wards placed in the red side jungle of Curse is a huge investment for Vulcun to go into. They really care about vision of that area. We'll see how it ends up playing out because they conceded vision of their own red jungle, and they're actually expecting something similar.
These 3 early wards are the same wards that Korea plays down at All-Star games.
Even the one over the double golem wall?
To explore over golems. Is that Explorer? It's not Explorer. It's a real ward, but they usually use the Explorer there.
All right, so they just wanted... I think that'll tell you earlier where the bottom lane is going to be going, so you can more adequately counter it if you're looking for or against a lane swap.
Absolutely. Let's see what they try to continuously do. Looks like Saint heads over towards his red, and no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not his red.
That's the Vulcan red.
That's the Vulcan red. All right, so Saint goes over to Vulcan red, I should say. I'm just kind of like scrolling the map, and I didn't realize on the other side.
You're like, wait a minute.
Go Riv.
You shouldn't be there, Saintvicious. What are you doing? And this will be interesting. I think they're just going to be ending up trading double buffs with each other. Since Vulcun has such control over Curse's red jungle, I feel like Curse is just conceding it.
There's the 2v1 mid. BloodWater and Zuna going to try to pressure that one down. We'll see what happens. Looks like the Zyra pick is actually going to work out quite well against mancloud. He gets that Rune Prison in. They're still going to be able to stay within range and get that damage in.
And based on what Xmithie is doing right here, he's on a collision course for Saintvicious. Xmithie has Smite, Saintvicious does not, so this looks like it could be a blue steal.
Saint's like, yeah, you're 1v1, let's do this. But here comes BloodWater around the corner. You did not expect that. The power chords to be played. The Symphony, however, going in favor of Saintvicious here. He just pushes out Xmithie on that situation, knowing his skill set is better. Sycho Sid giving some aggression to Voyboy in the top lane. He's going to go ahead and take it to the skies. He gets that E in. There's the stun onto Sycho Sid, or for Voyboy. And it looks like he may be able to proc one more. He tries to get in the range. The Knight goes down. It may not be enough. One more tick. He gets it for first blood.
The very last tick gets Voyboy down. I thought for sure he was going to be able to get away. Sycho Sid with a level 3 Ignite coming through, giving him that extra little bit of Ignite damage. Catches Voyboy checking for blue help. Because of the 2v1 mid, I feel like Vulcun out-manned Curse there, and then Voyboy had no support coming from Sycho Sid, and then Sycho Sid just out-traded him with that Doran's Blade start. That is going to be a mountain Voyboy now has to climb in that top lane, losing a lot in that exchange.
That's not something you see every day. A level 2 Jace get taken down by a level 2 Kennen, which is now a level 4-2 discrepancy, as mid lane is needing help from the jungler here. Saintvicious going over to Nyjacky.
And we need to track now how this bottom lane is doing for Curse, because they need to get some damage on this turret. Mandatory Cloud with 13 minion kills, not getting harassed and not taking turret damage means this Edward caught bottom lane is not providing impact compared to what Zuna and BloodWater are potentially doing to this mid lane.
And wow, Sycho Sid looking to keep the pressure on, goes for to the 2 Dorans quickly with the boots to keep himself safe in any of those engages, because he is going to be playing aggressive. Zuna taking a bit of auto attack damage here, but they trade back even more in the mid lane. Everything going well right now for Vulcun.
and we'll see if Xmithie can pull off something here. A no-buff Sejuani is mainly just in this lane to leech experience. He's actually only here to maybe save a little bit of the tower. I don't think they could realistically go in for an aggressive fight, but I've been wrong before.
There's a little there's a bit of safety. Whoa! Maybe they just wanted the poke there, and they got it. Even putting the ward down wasn't enough safety. They just kind of put him in that false sense of security.
Really nice route by Edward there, and I feel like mandatorycloud really just should have been waiting in his turret for these creeps to arrive, because that's how he's been surviving in this lane up until now. And because he took that poke, it means Xmithie has to stay here to prevent the 2v1 tower dive.
This is kind of one of those you're making it harder for me situations. He's going to try to get himself into a good spot, and it looks like, wow, they're actually going to play this from BloodWater. He makes the call for himself to go down, throw some sustain to the lane, and then he'll meet back up in mid.
Might as well. It's a range and the bottom, and Zuna's doing completely fine in mid. Plus, BloodWater wasn't really providing any extra harass on to Nyjacky, so they're just transitioning to Caitlyn mid. I can see this working out.
We'll have to see what they do. We have seen this happen, well, not happen before, but Caitlyn mid, been played before, I should say. 6 minutes into this one, we'll see how Curse reacts to this bit of a transition. It's going to be a dual lane in the bot now versus the dual lane with Zuna mid. Nyjacky trying to get some damage out, gets that auto attack. Zuna eats a turret. Looks like he may play this real safe and go back.
And Zuna really wants to get that mid lane turret, because I cannot stress enough how important it is
quite
to get
low.
that mid lane turret down. And even though, like, that's a very interesting choice by BloodWater to go to the bottom lane at this juncture in the game, because if he stayed mid, I feel like Zuna and BloodWater could get that turret on the next push, whereas now it's not nearly as guaranteed. I think that's why Xmithie is here, because they're trying to add extra presence, but I don't see them getting down this turret. Nyjacky's able to keep those creeps low enough.
They got that siege pressure from Nyjacky. He's easily just clearing that out with Prismatic Barrier on. Xmithie is looking to cause trouble, though, looking to find Saintvicious, so that will allow Zuna to be more aggressive in mid.
And still no turrets necessarily pushed down. The lane phase was extended when BloodWater decided to go bottom and essentially create standard lanes again, even though Ryze and Caitlyn are swapping like an AP duo for an AD duo lane.
I figured that would have been a fast move for mancloud to have Sona go down, or for Daydream, wow, BloodWater to go down. We got it. There's a list in my name. I just had to find the right
some
one.
roster swaps. It's understandable.
So still staying here at both level 5. He is 33 to 41, so even as the mid laner, he's not grabbing up the CS that Lux is in that 1v1.
Not necessarily, despite having the support helping him. I mean, 2v2 when you're constantly pushed is not as good as a 1v1 in the mid lane where they're still trying to get down that turret. And I feel like Saintvicious is just trying to brute force this one down. There's no wave clear on Ryze to be able to stop this. Chris getting this first turret.
So that turret, actually quite big, is going to help a little bit with dragon pressure as well. If they can get damage down onto Zuna and BloodWater even more. Zuna's actually quite hurt here in mid, so he may not be able to come down. He gets flashed on. He's going to live from this one, but that's going to be pressure and maybe what they need for dragon, but they're going back. Never mind.
He was about one auto attack away from being able to take down there. Nyjacky doing a admirable job holding that off, really pulling the lane almost back in his favor, only down about 16 minion kills to Zuna despite being 1v2 for quite a long time early on. And just the one turret for Curse trying to pull this one even. I need to keep track of that top lane though.
See, Voyboy 6 to Sycho Sid 7. That's 50 to 64 in CS. So all things considered, that the kill there, it's only about 15 CS. So Jace is definitely going to have, I think, a bit bigger of an impact once we get to that late game point.
And I really have to commend Voyboy here because we haven't been paying attention to this lane, but after he died at level 2, coming back level 2 to 1 mismatch, knowing he's going up against a double Thorns Blade Sycho Sid on his return, and then keeping the minion kills close, not losing too much of his turret means he's been farming very well and smartly.
That bottom turret being taken down, both teams backing, and Curse still finds themselves in the position to take Dragon. Saintvicious taking a lot of damage here. Laser goes out, they get a good proc onto Xmithie. That's the main initiation for them to get into this fight. Zuna just trying to throw out some damage. They get out of this one with a few scratches. Saint makes it out.
The minions did end up taking the mid lane for Vulcun as well, but that fight was really prevented by Nyjacky landing a great light binding onto Xmithie, and because Xmithie didn't have his Sejuani ultimate up quite yet to make a good initiation. If Jackie doesn't land that bind, I feel like Curse loses multiple people in a fight, but because he landed it, they got the dragon unharmed.
Jace backing in the top lane. The tier stacked up 192, still quite far away, and it actually just purchased up here at 9 minutes on to mancloud. He's only got 24 on it, so they're looking to get that little bit of kind of extra gold as they charge it up for themselves, more so for mancloud right now.
That's blue control, though, for Vulcun. They've gotten their own blue and also curses. It means the Nyjacky will not be able to super easily clear waves. And it means that since they had the blue control, Sycho Sid felt safe about farming this top lane a little while longer and was able to finish off that top turret.
Vulcun finding a little bit of global pressure here onto Curse. At 10 minutes into the game, they find 2 turrets to the 1, but that's going to be top and mid. They have a lot more global pressure than Curse is finding with that bottom turret for the dual lanes now down. The global gold lead, only 600, so it's still within grasp of anybody here. As we look at the items, actually a fast pickaxe for Zuna here.
And from a pacing perspective as well, this is a fair bit like the TSM versus Coast game we just saw. Substantially different picks, substantially different strategies, but not much fighting. These guys are still kind of feeling each other out. It's been a while since they've been in competition since the first season, and I think later on in the day or even later on in Super Week, we'll start seeing the early game brawls because these guys are taking it pretty slow right now.
And with Kennen with 2 Dorans, works it pretty well on a turret, but you think with the amount of AP that they have, they wouldn't be hitting turrets as hard. You think the Jace, the Ez team coming in would be able to take it down, but Vulcun's found themselves more turrets so far. The lane pressure as well is being forced by Curse, but it has to be in the 2v1 lanes every time. The ultimate just missing, but it does force the barrier.
A slight lack of coordination, actually. Once you land the light binding, you can kind of sync the Lux and Ezreal ultimates up if you want to, but because Cops was a little bit delayed, I feel like it allowed BloodWater's heal to get in and give him the extra resist for that, but it still pushes Zuna back from the turret and allows Curse to get a bit of a siege on, but they decide to back away as well because they may have found a mandatory cloud. No. They're just disengaging all over the place.
They did not. He floats away. Looks like he will be safe. And this is kind of what I was talking about just a second ago. Where is the Curse team that is going to drop the turrets with the AD that they have? Looks like they bring it to the table now, but they don't have the minion wave to continue. Mandatory Cloud walks back in from the side to get the side flank again, but he is seen by a pink ward.
And to reiterate, this is a Curse poke composition. They do not necessarily want to take straight up 5v5s. They only want to fight if they get a Lux light binding that can kill someone, or if they diminish the enemy's health far enough down that they could get a safe initiation, because the champions that Curse has picked are not great in brawl scenarios. They definitely have to get damage down before fights start.
Pretty low farm game for these teams. We've seen a lot of rotating going around. 70s for the mids after 12 minutes into the game. Usually you see it hovering around 100. Mandatory Cloud, good damage from each other on Comp and mancloud in the bottom lane. It looks like we're going to get Saintvicious coming up from the side here. He will be going down to the mancloud. The Rune Prison goes onto Cloud. He knows Cop can just get closer. Going to try to do the damage that he can put out before going down. But Cop able to pick himself up. The first kill for Curse.
Yeah, Mandatory Cloud was already a little squishy. Once he gets Trundle ulted, his resist just gets shredded. And even though Cop just has that Lizard Elder, he fell real fast. Cop also picked up the blue buff off of that kill, so that will really help his blue Ezreal build as he continues on in this game.
So we see somewhat of a mistake being made here. The pressure of Vulcun in middle was acted on by Curse. They knew that there was one alone. They took him out. If they keep doing that, they're definitely going to edge themselves way ahead of Vulcun. And Curse is a team to do that. Just patiently wait and take you out when you're at your weakest.
And the first blood is a little bit forgotten at this point, since it is 2 turrets to 1 for Vulcun, but the Dragon went to Curse, and the gold is straight up even again. It's only that 22 minion kill advantage that Sycho Sid's put on Curse right now, and until Sycho Sid converts that to a bit of team fight prowess, it doesn't really matter because Voyboy's poke is not hindered by getting that first death.
Voyboy doing a very good job in that top lane. Like we said, he's still going to be that formidable opponent later. Hunting guys coming out onto Kennen. So even if this were to be that poke comp, he's not going for the Seeker's arm guard. They're going to have to throw themselves into the fight if they don't have Xmithie there for the initiation. And it's almost like the counter like of Volibear as well. Lux is good against those gap closing counters to start a fight.
And we know that against Sejuani, highly mobile teams can do fairly well.
Right.
But also for Sejuani, teams that can follow up on initiation are potent. So a lot of it just has to do with whether Vulcun chains their crowd control right when they're engaging on Curse, or whether Curse can stay kind of spread out enough while they're poking to not all get hit at once. I think those will be the key things in this game, since it is approaching Tower Siege teamfight mode while still quite close.
All right, so 14 minutes in here, taking a look at the mini-map, the consideration and ward coverage. Looks like Vulcun just trying to keep themselves on entry exits. They do have that Wraith ward down just for a original, or not original, but a regular ward to keep safety from any ganks towards the mid lane. They're not really piling up either, not going for any pressure. It's kind of that lull.
And that ward that Saintvicious just placed is one of 2 wards I feel that Curse has on the entire map. Most of the ward control is in the favor of Vulcun, but Curse doesn't necessarily care about that because they say we're going for a dragon right now, which could actually be kind of dangerous for a poke comp, cornering yourself at a dragon. They also know Vulcun has 2 people pushing towers at the bottom lane, so these are some very strange things happening right now, really.
So everybody playing a little reactionary here. They go for mandatory cloud in the bottom lane. He walks it out. They may grab this top turret. So once again, teams trading. Can Voyboy get there in time to stop this? Looks like that next wave coming in gives them enough pressure to put that down. So it's going to be turret for dragon as they go again back and forth. And they tie up the turrets on this. Or actually get 3 turrets to 1 on this one.
Surprisingly, I feel like that was actually better for Curse, despite losing that turret. I don't think Curse is going to be giving up that inhibitor turret, and that second tier top lane turret doesn't matter for them yet, since Curse's main objective later is going to be getting towers back. The Dragon Gold is something that's forever, whereas Tower Gold can kind of be traded in a strange way, since I don't think Curse will give up that much map control for losing that turret, based on their poke comp.
Map control and just ability to fight. If you think about the composition of Trundle, Jace, and Lux pinched into the entry of a base, they have perfect siege there, so you're right. They're not worried about the inhibitor.
And Sycho Sid is planning a bit of a sneak attack here while Curse tries to siege up. Kennen is behind Curse right now, and they might try hard initiation.
Here he comes. He's a flipping ninja, but it doesn't look like he's going to go in just yet. He activates the E. He goes in, but he gets knocked out, and it pretty much negates the entire ult. They find 1 kill onto Cop. That's going to be perfect for getting the kite out of the way. Edward throws out a very nice ult. They may be able to capitalize. Crescendo coming in from BloodWater. It hits them all up. Xmithie puts himself into the frying pan to get burned up, but his team is able to capitalize on this. Edward looks for the kill, but Sycho Sid dodges. The auto attacks may not be enough. The passive to come up, and he misses the shot. Nyjacky gets out with 100 HP.
4-4-1. The sneak attack flipping ninja Sycho Sid initiated that fight. He's now 4-0-1. We talked about him capitalizing on his first blood extra gold to create a good team fight, and now Kennen's going to be turning into a real monster. That was very clean by Vulcun getting in there, and they cleaned up. Curse cannot get snuck up on like that in the future.
What? Whoa.
Nice little dodge there.
Kind of get that re-hemmed there. A little bit of burn on BloodWater's dress. 5-2 at 17 minutes into the game. A 2,000 gold lead going in favor of Vulcun. And really coming into that fight, Sycho Sid doesn't have very many items, but he is making an impact.
A lot of it has to do with his experience. He was level 11 in that team fight, so he had 2 ranks in his ultimate slicing maelstrom, and even though it only hit Cop, it got a very important instrument of that poke comp for Curse out of the way. And even though I had just gotten off a spiel about that second tier turret not mattering that much for Curse, that's the whole reason Sycho Sid was able to sneak up behind them, because the map control in that area of the map wasn't there.
It plays in very different ways, Jat. Mandatory Cloud now with a bit of hold here. Going to get a cooldown on those spells. Looks like he may not get ulted just yet. No, Saint does throw that off. Looks like he may not be able to get out of this one. Xmithie just on the side. Cop there to help him, but Cop, watch out. Xmithie could have you. Xmithie's ultimate is just about to come back up. Cop needs to be very careful here. They may choose to go on this. They do not, though. They just play it for the 1 kill.
Not sure what Saintvicious was doing all the way up there, but Vulcun definitely chased him down, picked up yet another kill. Now they may be able to siege a little bit of turret, but I think Vulcan's actually going to be taking this opportunity to keep the side lanes pushed. If they can keep the poke comp contained to their own base, they don't have to worry about losing turrets.
See what Zuna can do at 147 CS, a few over right now, but he does have the Infinity Edge completed. He's looking to grab up more CS, create pressure in the lanes, and get that attack speed. He will be tremendous in the fights upcoming, but right now, if his team can push 4v3, they are going to do it.
And Cop doesn't have the blue Ezreal items he needs yet. In order to be the poke Ezreal, he's going to have to get those Iceborne Gauntlets, but Vulcan's kept the pressure on, and Cobb has not been able to farm up 139 minion kills, 18.5 minutes, plus just the 1 kill is not going to generate the type of gold flow that Curse needs.
And something that's commonly said is, blue Ezreal build can be huge. It can really wreak havoc. But if you don't follow and you're not even with the game as it goes, falling behind becomes a huge factor in its damage.
Yeah, it was actually Cloud Templar was doing some guest commentary at the All-Star game for the OGN stream, and he was mentioning how it is a good build, but you have to be ahead in order for it to work, because the gold threshold until you get the items that make it tick is so high. It's like 7,000 or 8,000 gold before you even become fully effective, and Cop has just not reached that point yet.
He's about 900 gold off, but right now you have to consider he's by himself. He's going to farm that lane, but when he can't, everybody in that group is farming it unless they are completely giving it to him. And at this point, they may just be doing that. See, his charge is now up to 384, so that's even quite a ways off. 400 as Tear the Goddess was bought. About 100 charges after, and manclouds is already about.
Yeah, and 750 for Voyboy because he's got that big Myrrh mana already transformed, so maybe Voyboy can turn some fights with that. Well, Jace has a little bit of an edge.
Alt,
on the 3.7 patch, you can just alt and get tier stacks. That's changed in the 3.8 patch, so Voyboy better cherish this early transform Myrrh mana.
Let's see what he uses it for. He's going to head to the top lane, try to stop Sycho Sid on this free farm as well. He's still got about 30 on that, but 5-0-1, something we haven't really touched on for Sycho Sid.
Yeah.
He has bought his items, and he went haunting guys straight in to that Seeker's Arm Guard and then into the Zanya's at the needlessly large rod. So he's actually only about 600 gold off.
He's doing lots of damage on Kennen right now. I gotta say, even with the home guard boots, it's just his ability to try to keep the map pressure up. And Saintvicious and Voy are actually trying to two-man him up top. We'll see if Vulcun tries to turn something around elsewhere, as I don't think the Saint Voyboy gank has any chance of working on Sycho Sid.
He eat from so far away. He's like, I don't even want to hear what you guys have to say. 20 minutes into this one, super safe play. Vulcun knows that Curse can make the plays happen to switch this game around. They may feel comfortable, but they know they can't get complacent.
And surprisingly, Sycho Sid's actually conceding the turret to Voyboy and Saintvicious. He is giving respect to the Trundle ultimate plus the Myrrh mana Jace. And it turns out that was probably a good play for Curse, but they're giving up a lot of turret damage down bottom as well. This is just a turret trade, so I don't know who to give that to.
And with Kennen speed in mid lane too, he's going to be able to push that down. They're going to be able to just transfer over to mid lane, seeing those guys top. Maybe they'll back. Yeah, they're actually absolutely going to back it.
So Curse keeping the pressure on Vulcun. Vulcun having to back away. No one from Curse able to really get them out of this. And I believe there's also a dragon being taken at the same time. So just huge amounts of gold is flowing into both teams right now as they trade big money objectives. 975 for dragons, 750 for turrets across the map. And Sycho Sid getting fed up and going in.
He goes in because he bought the Zanyas. If he had it for the top lane second tier turret, he probably would have done so. He forces flash on that. I think he potted up for that as well, but he used everything for that engagement. And the reason that a poke comp can be beat is by that flashing cannon. We were talking about that earlier, so it's all on Xmithie now for this next fight.
And this actually tells me that Curse is going to go straight back to base and then go right up the mid lane because they don't have to worry about Sycho Sid's ultimate for another 80 seconds, the flash for another 5 minutes. This could be a point where Curse tries to pull themselves a little bit back in the game, being down 3,000 gold and really hoping Comp gets to that Iceborne Gauntlet fairly quickly.
A very low kill score coming into this one, just like last game. 6-2, 3,000 gold in the lead is Vulcun, and they've held that lead quite accordingly. 600 and then scaled that up to the now 3,000. 23 minutes in, we'll see Edward with that Oracles trying to continuously give his team that map coverage. They are just clearing areas with spells and then oracles and then spells.
One way Vulcun is trying to avoid the poke siege right now is by keeping pressure in mid lane. And Saint, look out, man, you're in mid lane again.
Saint just dives right into a group of people, force the flash or the Q, and then the ace in the hole coming from Zuna. They're able to take him down the second time Saint has been caught out.
And I think that's the last 2 kills Vulcun has picked up as well, have just been on Saintvicious. And since they were already clearing around the Baron buff with an Oracles, which has now expired, they can't guarantee vision control here. And no Saintvicious means no Smite Steal, but it could also be a 4v5. There's the initiation!
They go in very hard. They get 3 with that. Can they get the permafrost down? Nyjacky stays in. Cop gets the true shot barrage from downtown. And it looks like that may turn the fight for them. mancloud low. Zuna can only take a few more shots. And it looks like they are forced back. The Baron has been stopped. Curse comes out on top of that one. What can they do with it?
That was real scary for Vulcun. They walked straight into a perfect counter initiation. They lined up for Nyjacky, Edward, and Cop. Plus, I believe the Shock Blaster and Voyboy just about killed all of them at once. And that was without the Voyboy, so that is scary for Vulcun as far as poke comps and trying to initiate go in, because they can't do it in tight corridors like that, even though they hadn't been poked down previously by Curse.
You can see they're pinging this again. They have a highway of wards just curving around that entry for Baron, and then one for the blue entry as well. Cop going ahead, taking blue, taking that advantage away from mandatory cloud. He will not be able to machine gun rise as well. We look around the board, not too many more buys have come in. So the fact that Vulcun is kind of stuck here means they're not really getting the income they were before, and they're going to have to make do with the items now as Curse is starting to ramp up.
And something Curse did a tremendous job with last season was coming back in games. They were down in so many games, and they were able to stretch, and a lot of their identity was just that they stuck with games that could come back. They pick late game compositions and they transition well, and maybe they're doing this again in this one because it hasn't been looking good. Even with the Saintvicious getting picked off a couple times, it was looking grimmer and grimmer, but that last fight turn has got to get Vulcun thinking.
Like we said, Jack, Curse more than happy to kind of leave that inhibitor turret up because of the siege protection they get from Jace, they get from Lux, being able to just pretty much have those two protect a turret versus any amount of champions. They can make small moves when they need and wait for really Vulcun, like I said, to push up out of their comfort zone. At 25 minutes in, the wards are everywhere now. It's pretty much just wards. They're ward fighting.
Yeah, and in that last 4v5 that Vulcun had as well, we do got to remember Sycho Sid's cannon ultimate wasn't there. So the most, the most dangerous man on Vulcun right now couldn't even really participate in that fight, which is one of the reasons the 4v5 worked for Curse. There's a lot of posturing around that Baron, and Vulcan's got to be careful how much they get themselves caught in here or how much they try to poke around Baron, because a poke comp actually wants to get you trapped with your back against the wall so they can just poke, disengage, and it's what they're trying to do with this turret. Yet Sycho Sid, I swear this happened 10 minutes ago, is pushing that side lane, and they got to worry about him coming up from behind.
So they may lose an inhibitor for a second-tier turret here. It looks like they're going to try to fight this, and you can see the siege clear is also good for siege pressure. They just wipe the minion waves out, try to get some damage on the turret. The next poke will be one to take down the turret, but it's going to be a possible trade as Kennen has good attack speed.
And Curse has got to get back to base right now. This is a split push to counter the poke that Vulcun is trying to do. Sycho Sid is not stopping this push. That turret getting very low. Voyboy is the sole person going back to defend, and it means Vulcun has completely repelled that mid lane push.
Sycho Sid getting out of that situation. He's got a shuriken prep to make sure it's a safe exit for himself, and Curse able to hold this off in mid as well. So the reactionary on that one is and didn't take down the mid turret.
And Curse has to be very careful because they know what happens when Kennen sneaks through their own jungle. Curse has better ward coverage behind them. This time, it's strange to think they have to ward behind themselves to push mid lane, but that's what they're doing right now. And Voyboy also has to be careful since he's been soloed by Sycho Sid before.
They have wards absolutely everywhere. It looks like they're going to once again catch that vision of Sycho Sid as he moves through, but the team is starting to pressure. They have to read this
nice
here.
Catch.
They telegraph this one in. It's going to be the light binding. Oh, just dodging. The gap closer is the gap escaper on that one for Sejuani, and Xmithie keeps himself alive. It looks like the turret will go down. Saintvicious and crew find themselves backing up here to pick up some experience in the jungle.
And these poke games get a little bit tense from time to time because it's all about that one light binding. A really tiny one-man advantage could mean multiple turrets and maybe an inhibitor for Curse. There's a constant chess match going on right now between Sycho Sid and Voyboy trying to get split push in while the team isn't there. It's actually pretty good by Vulcun that they're keeping the main poker down, but they keep getting caught by those light bindings, and look at that poke, plus a ton of damage on the turret.
Oh, Edward getting pretty caught up. He gets permafrosted down. That's going to be Kennen flashing in. Sycho Sid, he waited 5 minutes, and he waited so long to do that. Oh, it's unfortunate that that happened just now. A great disengage from Curse. They did lose Edward, though.
I think they're okay with that. Voyboy got a little bit caught out there, but as long as Vulcun can't re-engage, they can't re-engage based off all this poke that Curse is throwing at them. They got most of that turret, and the gold is looking closer and closer to even for Curse.
And it's kind of like that, whoa, what just happened? And it was the point we were just talking about where there hasn't been the super amount of income. It's been a Giants belt, which means 1,000 gold has come in since that Zanyos was bought by Sycho Sid, which means the rest of the team has been feeling that. The Muramana has been finished on Ez. The Iceborne Gauntlet, last time we looked, that was just the Elder Lizard. These guys are now back in control.
Plus everyone on Curse had about 1,600 gold before this last shopping trip. So you look at the items they bought now, and they're really starting to power up. Voyboy's almost at that Bloodthirster. The Rabadon's death cap was completed for Nyjacky. There's almost a last Whisper on Cop, which is going to be huge for him. That's like the last big component for that Blue Ezreal build to really come into its own. And since the poke combos from Nyjacky were almost killing before the death cap, and a huge amount of magic resistance has not been completed on Vulcun since that last moment, it could be scare moment time for Vulcun here, and actually forcing Vulcun to make something happen.
And Curse using everything they have under their belt to just push these lanes. Make sure they have full control of every situation, even if only for a few seconds, to posture up and figure out what's going down. More wards being placed down in mid, just for absolute vision. They want to know every step that's happening.
And the folly that Curse cannot fall into here is if they corner themselves against Baron, that would allow Vulcun to initiate on them, and even though they have strong ward control over Baron, they can't go for that objective. Curse needs to continue doing what they're doing here, poking at a turret and disengaging if Vulcun tries to come for them.
Sycho Sid forced it back now, coming in with his team on that home guard rush. Looks like he will just be on the backside, not doing too much. The bulwark finished up onto Saintvicious is superbly going to help with the ultimate coming in from Kennen, slicing Maelstrom. Looking out at other items, Rabadon's and Athene, so Lux is just going full glass cannon this game. Nyjacky looking just throw out lasers all the time.
And I think Curse is disengaging a little bit just to push out some of their lanes. Vulcun trying to stay a little bit grouped up, but you know, the turrets were like 6-4 or 6-3 a little while ago, and Curse has just taken turret after turret here. Vulcan's got to make their answer, and quickly, as they have an Oracle's on BloodWater, and they're trying a hard push up mid here. While Curse is a little bit scattered, this might be a point where it has to work, but they can't get caught out like that!
That's going to be 75% of the HP off of BloodWater, but he says, I still have Crescendo. We may still be able to get engaged and get the bait off. Whoa, Nyjacky going down in an instant. They're going to have this turret in their eyes. Xmithie quite tanky. BloodWater again dodging by inches a true shot barrage. They're getting good heal on. He's back up to half HP. They're going to pressure.
And they still have their main initiation ultimates. Here they go.
There's a Crescendo going in. The slicing Maelstrom on 1-2, but he can't get out that much. He's slowed by the Iceborne Gauntlet. They try to get him for another kill. Xmithie goes down. Now they start to trade. The 1-for-1. Actually, Voyboy has gone down as well, so it's the 2-for-2. There goes BloodWater. BloodWater falls to the hands of Cobb, but Cobb goes down as well. Edward falls. It's only going to be Trundle, and Saintvicious goes down to the ground. The inhibitor's open for taking.
Vulcun turns it for an ace. Cobb got a little bit too far ahead, going with a bit of naked aggression there. No real defensive capabilities. Zuna and mandatorycloud sliced through their backline and cleaned up the inhibitor after the ace.
You have to consider how much pressure can you put on a fight when one of your biggest damage dealers just got obliterated. Nyjacky didn't even get to see any more damage, and then BloodWater didn't get hit after that initial burst.
And we kept talking about trying to find that window, and while it seemed like a good idea for Nyjacky to stop and land that full combo on BloodWater for 75% of his health, it revealed his position, and Vulcun realized that Curse was already scattered, which I think allowed mandatorycloud to get the flash rune prison is how that started, and just explode Nyjacky, because there was nothing Curse could do to punish him for that move. Great play by Vulcun, and that's the move they kind of needed. Let's see if they can close from there.
Quickly being bought up, the Spirit Visions coming into the hands of mandatorycloud. The Rylas now coming out onto Sycho Sid. His ultimate's going to be a bit more effective. As we said, this comp is a poke comp, but they also have really good disengage and movement from that Jace.
As you need in the poke comps a lot of times. You can't just sit back and poke if you can't avoid someone from initiating on you, and that's what they haven't avoided the best here in this Vulcun game, seeing as they've fell victim to 13 kills from Vulcun. There's the Sejuani ultimate, wide right, and that's a lot of initiation down for them as they try to force around this Baron that is Vulcun. You
can see tensions are running high. There was really nobody that can gap close besides Kennen along with Sejuani over a wall. That was still a very extended fight, and they could have still got out even with the hit on the ultimate.
There's 80 seconds left on that Sejuani ultimate before it's back up again. I wonder if Curse is going to have a higher sense of confidence now that that's there, but they are down in the inhibitor, which means the side lane minions all have 100 extra health, and that is most important in that bottom lane where there are about 15 minions pushing. Curse is going to have to go back as Vulcun tries to stop them from doing so.
A good poke going out. Not as much poke as you think you would really see from a Jace coming in here. He has the Brutalizer, but he does not have a Last Whisper on him. And it's really been a halt in items for everybody here. It's going to be about the fight and what they've so far brought to the table. 33 minutes in, a lot of positioning going on here. Saintvicious gets caught for a bit of damage. Shielded off by Nyjacky as they just kind of go toe-to-toe here in middle. And
Nyjacky's a little bit low on mana if they're going to have an extended fight here. He's down to 300 mana of his 1,000. That's pretty much enough for one Lux combo, which would give Vulcun a lot of confidence to maybe go for a Baron here.
An 8-0-3 Sycho Sid. unsure how he has not died yet. He's participated in quite a few. There's 11 participations by him, 13 kills. The true shot barrage goes out.
Down.
That is going to go down. There it is. It's going to be the takedown from Xmithie. Will they turn on the fight? They have great vision of what's going on, but the Oracles just keeping them safe. They knew they were standing in wards. They just had to keep distance.
Really strong vision control from Vulcun there, and good skepticism by Curse as well. Like, that was just playing the game properly for Vulcun, knowing that Curse could not safely check those rushes coming through, and now knowing that Curse has to go back to base, they may take up a second inhibitor of the game.
We only have 2 home guards being spit out here by Curse. It's going to be able to get Nyjacky in there, but the binding goes on to minions. They just get a bit of siege clear there with the lasers, and it looks like they're going to start backing up here. Saintvicious and crew to guard the base. Looks like they're just taking a bit of poke here. It's not really doing too much damage, though.
We got to remember, Vulcun is the team that beat Curse in the 3rd, 4th place game at the end of last split, so they have a track record already of beating this team, even though it was before the acquisition of Edward, and they're looking to close out this one with the Baron buff, with 2 or 3 inhibitors down, and with a catch over the wall.
A team that's really good with momentum, or really remembers the momentum right now. Vulcun trying to pressure their way in. They do have a siege minion wave that gets siege down. Huge burst there. It's going to be the Thunder Pillar going out. There's no escape, so it's Vulcun all in. They try to take the fight. Their cop is getting taken down. Frozen up, permafrosted, and surged out. One more hit, and he goes down. There is the gap closer. A flash out coming from Xmithie. They have control of the bottom half of the base, the top half of the base, and the middle. It's all theirs, and possibly the game if they don't play the safe. They could die, though.
30 to 40 second death timers all across Curse now. Xmithie the only one to fall for Vulcun. They may take it slower, they may go hard for the win.
Oh, that pillar, that's what I'm talking about. You gotta play it super safe. There's still 2 turrets there. Here comes Edward throwing down the crowd control. Good dodge coming from Sycho Sid. Saintvicious just trying to clear the minions out. They throw it on the wild growth. The good pop up there. Where's the initiation from the team? Voyboy on the backside does not want to get into hammer form and put himself in. They take down the second turret, Chad. It's gonna be the Nexus. Vulcun continues their win streak versus Curse. The second game of opening week summer split.
They initiated on the poke comp. Curse's Gambit didn't work out in this one. And man, 36 minutes felt longer than that because poke compositions are very, very tense to play against. If Curse could have ever gotten the upper hand and sieged down an inhibitor, that would have been it. But Vulcun just found the right